One new announcement here at Gamescom this year is War of the Roses from the lads at Fatshark and Paradox. And just what is, because we've been hearing about Project Postman for a very long time from Fred on his Twitter. He's been twittering about it all the time. But what is War of the Roses?
War of the Roses is a third-person action game set in the medieval times around the late 1400s during the Wars of the Roses scenario, which was a civil war, a clash in England that's quite famous historically, a lot of historical information, and this is going to also be a huge multiplayer focus on this game as well. So it's going to be centrically based and multiplayer and designed around that, but with a really good single-player campaign as well.
Sounds like it's sort of marriages to a Paradox strengths, like the historical games and something a little bit akin to Mount and Blade.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mount and Blade was a pioneer in terms of like melee combat multiplayer games, but they're more like a sandbox game. This is more like a single-player storyline campaign for the single player part, and the multiplayer part is more of a big battles, and we focus on the multiplayer part. It's more of a, we want to make it very accessible. We're going to do it close. I mean, close combat is really crucial in this game. A little bit like Let and Go, we kind of like put the focus on the game and the action very close between the characters. A third person perspective, of course, but we use sometimes first person views when we need it, when it feels good for the player. For example, when you rush into combat or aim with an archer or something like that. So yeah.
And in terms of the gameplay, what is it about this historical period that makes for interesting gameplay?
I think it was actually a time when chivalry started to die, when there was the introduction of gunpowder. So this technology was really starting to fastly take pace and become, the crutch of what these guys were using to win the battles, instead of the classic style where it was those with the best archers, those with the best knights, and those with the best army. It was who had the biggest guns. So it's at this weird kind of crossing and this change in this world, which leads us to have a wide variety of weapons to put in this game, not only from the melee combat games like a sword and a shield, but also to introduce in a very smart way maybe some guns, but of course of that era. It's all going to be, all the weapons and everything that you're going to have access to are going to be historically accurate, so we're not going to diverge from that either.
Speaking of the weapons and how you sort of unlock these weapons and progress through the game, can you tell us a little bit about how that's going to work?
Yeah, sure. We want to have an unlock system that's really, if you want to play a lot with, for example, Access, maybe after you have done a certain amount of kills or something with Access, you unlock maybe new, cooler axe that you can use. It's the same, you will be able to unlock skills after a while if you play a lot with a certain type of weapons and armor. So the upgrades will mainly be like bling bling stuff, so it's a cool helmet, a more nice looking weapon, a special one. So we want to keep the balance in the multiplayer, so we don't give them items that's too overpowered, but we want to give them items that people see them on the battlefield. Oh, he's a badass guy, I don't want to fight him, I probably go to the left flank to avoid him. So it's more about having a cool appearance.
And this kind of ties into how it was during that time. I mean, the knights that survived the most battles, and they did attain more wealth, and so they had ordained themselves much more in a fancy way, but that sword didn't necessarily give them any tactical advantage, but it did also represent something. When you see this this sword and he has this special sword, you're like, damn, this guy survived a lot and he knows what he's doing. So it kind of sends more of a message to that person, like, how am I going to approach this guy? And it creates a kind of an interesting, quick, instant scenario where a person can assess this character and kind of have this backstory of them, whether it's correct or not.
So how would you describe the flow of the gameplay in a battle, and sort of how does it progress?
Yeah, we are quite early in the production already, but we're testing a lot of game modes and a lot of type of levels. I would say there's some standard game modes, of course, but there's also a few game modes that will be more characteristic for the time era. I guess some of the troops will be more fitted for an open field, for example, if you're on a horse, maybe archers, but some will be more narrow quarters, like in a village or in a forest. So the levels will be quite varied, and yeah.
have a class-based selection as well, so that very akin to classic multiplayer games where you select the right type of soldier class that you want to be for that situation. So you can make the right choices, select the right type of bow, or select the right type of sword, or do you want a shield, or do you want to go in without a shield? Do you want to use a parry system? And we're still fleshing some of that out. There's a lot of good ideas sometimes, and we keep those, and then there's some ideas that don't turn out to be so good, and we're going to have to kill those. So at this point in development, it's hard to really pinpoint it down, but we'll definitely deliver that more once we've solidified those areas of the gameplay experience. But the biggest thing is that we really want to have as big of a multiplayer experience as possible. We want as many soldiers on the field, all player controlled, really fighting it out. And there's the clear two divisions of factions, so it will be also very team based. So you will be fighting alongside your brothers in arms, so to speak. I know that's kind of corny, but it kind of says it well.
All right, and you mentioned you're early in development, but when do you sort of aim to have it done?
In the middle of next year, but I mean it's an iterative process, so we're looking all the time. Do we need another month, or what should we do with the game? So it's the best possible experience when we release it, and this is a game we will support it in the long run. So it's not like we're going to end the development when we release it. We're going to continue with DLCs, a lot of new items, unlocks, maps. One day will be free, of course. We don't want to divide the player base, so yeah. I mean, I think
we're going to have really smart DLC. We're not going to take the lazy path of just putting out a map pack and saying, here, buy this. And then it's like, okay, my friend didn't buy that. Now what do I do? And now I'm just going back and playing the vanilla maps. And that kind of, what was the point of that? We want to always keep our player base together. And, and if we do charge for something, it's going to make sense. It's going to be smart to the player, and they're going to feel like there was a value to them to do that. And, and with digital distribution, this is going to be directly on Steam. We have a lot more control of how this product flows, and it's going to be a bit of an organic project where we're going to release the core game. It's going to be solid, and then we're really going to listen to the feedback. And I know people say that all the time, but we really are going to listen to them and deliver what a lot of instances what they want, and deliver things that they didn't expect.